He's a professor, Nikki. Look.
Hello?
Sorry, man. I was having technical difficulties.
No, 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 not you. I mean, hi,
No,
Nikki.
no, no. It
How are you? Thank you,
this Zoom,
both
I had
of
to
you.
reset my Zoom because I have so many Zooms and different, and I had to reset
You know,
it.
you gotta
Up
reset
an
your
old
Zoom.
Zoom that we have every Monday and Wednesday. I'm like, no, this is new. So
This is new, and I know right now how busy you must be, and I am
I'm
gratified.
first and foremost, time out. I miss you, my big brother.
I miss
How
you
dare it?
too. I miss you too. I mean, like, we can't go anywhere or do anything or except be safe and well. And obviously, that's the most important thing right now, you know. But it's always a pleasure. You look well, and
Thank you. Tired
I,
to tell.
I get. So what I'm going to try to train myself to do is, and I got to be careful when I do this. I just taught like 5 courses online this past semester. I have to be able to do, as they say, Roger, got it. Don't talk over the other person. So this is your interview, and you've got all the questions. So, but basically, I'm going to go ahead and ask you. I wanted to keep Jordan Rich on, but he's moving his office today. But with your permission, I certainly want to be able to play this for my leadership class and also for my podcast as well. But so let me get right into it.
Sure.
And, you know, my gosh, I mean, we've experienced so many challenges with COVID-19. And we have been afflicted with a bruised economy, a very partisan government, homelessness, and deprivation of sustained meals. This has, I meant sustainable meals. So
Yes.
this has signaled a need for strong leadership that offers hope and renewed faith in all the people in our community, all the people in our country. So here's my question. As a leader in your Boston community right now, how do you see the initiation and implementation of these needed changes through your policing policies and practices?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Professor. It's always a pleasure about the great College of Curry and you as well. And thank you for your ability to hone and create leaders or strengthen the leadership abilities of others who are already deemed as leaders. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think as a leader here in the 21st century, and specifically 21st century policing, look around and see who is available to you as pertains to who are other leaders. We're all going to have to rely on each other. This country is at a division right now. So leadership and change means this. You have to have that ability to have a conversation with other leaders, whether it's community stakeholders, whether it's police unions, whether it's the mayor, people that are going to have to help you implement the change. So for me, and the question posed, here's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with civil unrest. We're dealing with a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And again, as I just alluded to, 21st century policing and the overall attitude of our nation as pertains to policing. You have to show that you have the ability to police your own. You have to show that you are highly trained, and you have to show that you pay attention what's going on outside of your backyard, and that you're looking at the entire neighborhood and or nation and implementing changes so that whatever tragedy occurred, negative incident occurred, or negative interaction that occurred in other folks' yard, it's not going to happen in your yard, because you learn from that and you implemented change through training, through dialogue, and through policy. And the implementation of the aforementioned has to be done in a collaborative with other folks. Just a quick example. Everyone's crying for police reform. So the mayor and myself and a couple of others convened a 9-person panel led by former U.S. Attorney Wayne Budd. And we reviewed everything for BPD as pertains to rules and regulations and policy, and asked for recommendations as well to move our department forward in the 21st century. You have to be amenable to having folks come in, providing recommendations. Also, you have to be acceptable of constructive criticism, because you have to set egos aside, right? And you're the leader. Everyone's watching myself and the command and how we're going to change, how we're going to react to these recommendations. And my reaction was, we need reforms. But how did I do that? Right with the mayor doing a press conference, I'm like, listen. So as a leader, when there are recommended changes to move your department forward, you're going to have to relay that to the people that you work with. Of course, you know, I never say people work for me, they work with me.
Yeah,
It has to come from the top on down. Here's why we need to change. Here's why reform is good. And you have to show not only the people that you work with, but the community that you serve, or your clientele, your constituency, your clergy. I'm trying to get all the leaders
oh, yeah, yeah.
models. So
Yeah, well, you know, and the thing is, as you know, I have a practice sometimes of going a little bit off tangent because it's relevant. But from the time I actually wrote these questions, Commissioner, to the present time, we've seen an amazing change in who we were as a country. And I think it scared all of us. It really did. And you mentioned earlier about division and how much we have, but we all kind of knew that in the country. But now, as a country, we're really seeing this, and we're seeing this in real time and amidst a pandemic. But out of all of that, what absolutely amazed me was that we stood by our Constitution. We, even after that horrendous attack on our Capitol, we went back and we voted and we did our constitutional duty, despite some people right within our own government saying incredibly crazy things. But we still prevailed because we have those, and I always teach my classes this, core values. You have always been an innovator of change, as long as I've known you. From the time I met you as superintendent and rising to commissioner, you've been an innovator of change, directing over 2,500 police officers under your charge. How do you envision, and I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit, community participation that gets our citizens involved? In other words, you've always said to me over time, and I see you smiling a little bit because it's all coming back. You said, it isn't us. It isn't us against them. It's us working with them, meaning the community.
yes,
So the thing is, how do we take ourselves through this pandemic, be on high alert at the same time, and then go forward with a very challenging economy?
first, I would answer that by first stating the importance of educating people about who you are, what you're doing, what your mission is, and what your vision is. Then I'll lead by example. Community policing is such a jaded moniker now. Oh, community policing, yeah, working in partnership with the community. No, delve deep into what that definition means,
Okay.
and what the responsibility of each person is, what the responsibility of each entity is, whether they be clergy, institutions of higher learning, our proud medical facilities, our private sector, our clergy, even our professional sports teams. What's your job in the village to make sure this village is alive and well, to work in partnership, problem solve, and create a better quality of life, and make sure our village is as safe as it can be. So you really need to stress upon the importance of everybody knowing their role and how everybody is important to the structure and continuity of that village. Because one day something's going to come along that is going to threaten your entire village. It could be a natural disaster, it could be foreign, it could be domestic, but something's going to threaten your village, and you should know who you can rely on in these troubled times. The community and community policing is very important. So you have many, many different students you interact. If you just go outside of that assignment that you've assigned them and you start talking to them personally and like, hey, yeah, I'm also a musician. Hey, you know what? I'm also into engineering. Hey, you know what? I love law enforcement, military. I'm a clergy member. We have to get to know each other. So I'm going to say this, sorry, I'll put it in a nice profession. When the shite hits the fan, you know who your go-to people are, and you hit the ground running. And just like our winning Patriots of your 6 championships, you don't have to like each other, but you
You gotta
should
work
realize
together. Yeah.
the importance of each other's roles. And also, again, that education piece, educate people about who you are as an organization or what you're doing now. Community policing. Mayor Walsh allowed us to take it to a newer level. Now we have an entire Bureau of Community Engagement,
Okay.
where
Yeah.
we're focused past community policing to actually focusing more on that definition that I just gave you, that I alluded to, us working in partnership. Now we're really working in partnership from the ground level, creating a solid foundation for the BPD and the communities that we serve, the youth, the seniors, the private sector, and all of the aforementioned. You'll find that if you review and compare Boston to other major metropolises with like population and over, we still have our AAA bond rating. We still have one of the best crime rates in the country. 1 homicide's too many. Boston had 57 homicides last year. Everywhere else has 1, 2, 300, 100, 200, 300. As well, in Boston, unfortunately, we have one night of protesting. As we've seen across our nation, we've had protests and rioting that led up to a week. And pardon me, let me correct, I said one night of protesting, one night of violent protesting that led to rioting. That was quelled in one night. And that was done with the help of the community, the business sector, the military, state, local, and federal police. But there's nothing like people from Boston saying, no, not here. So build those strong relationships. Strong relationships are a core component in the implementation of change. Because if I have a vision and I have a vision, if no one understands what that vision is, and I can't relay that properly or explain it properly, we have a problem. But if you educate that person, entity, neighborhood about what your vision is, past the mission, and what our vision is together, you're going to have effective change.
And that's what we're talking about here, which is right on point. It's about effective change. So the idea is we want to create a metropolis where individuals do not consider themselves part of the problem, but from every facet of life, they are part of the solution when a crisis comes along, no matter where they come from. Like you said, whether they be clergy, doctors, lawyers, workers, people that work construction,
Right.
all of us
in our
are part of
community.
that dynamic.
And I'd like to add one more thing quickly is you have to show that you're human and that you know, I'm just asking to ask. No, you have to realize that people want to they want to give their opinion. And I think as leaders, oftentimes there's a stereotypical view and perception of leaders is like, it's our way or the highway. We'll tell you what to do. And no, here's the attitude you should have. Your input is expected and welcomed. We'll work through any constructive criticism, but this is what I'm talking about. Your input is welcome and expected. You're a part of the team. Let me educate you about what we're doing, how you're important to us, and how important it is for us to work together to protect this village. So you also have to have an accepting personality and put an ego aside and say, listen, as I alluded to earlier, people don't work for you, they work with you. So your input is expected, it's welcome. Let's work on this together.
Wow. And I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to get right to the point here.
Well, I was 5 minutes late because of technical difficulties, so I'll give you an extra. So
Yeah, but I didn't know if you were perhaps meeting with, you got meetings wall to wall here. So.
oh yeah, that
but-
never stops, Professor.
but it's crazy. But the idea is, as public servants, considering myself a public servant, our life is everybody's life, because what I do is I am trying to educate future leaders, existing leaders, and you are a continuous flow of learning, appreciating, a historian, if you will. And we are all historians of life. So Boston police officers make a difference. They really do. With your help and guidance, I've taught so many Boston police officers, and they take away the resources that I can give them, but what they do with them is influence and make changes in others, but not just fellow policemen. They make changes in the communities that they serve. So it's a dynamic of fusion of a one mindset that we're all in this together. So I see that in every one of my students that beat Boston Police Department promotes community policing, safety of all residents, and an education and self-preservation to all citizens, knowing that it's mutual. What do you see your police force doing differently once we get by this pandemic? What is your vision as a leader, a change agent, going into the 21-22 fiscal year?
Excellent question. We're
It's
growing,
loaded. I'm sorry.
we're growing each and every month. And what I see us doing after this pandemic, I think people are going to look at themselves differently. They're going to see who was there during crunch time. And they're going to see what we need to progress, because this pandemic, Boston has been such a great city for planning for the future that we're doing okay. We still have our AAA bond rating. We still have great communities. Our first responders are going above and beyond. Our first responders are going above and beyond and serving our city during this crisis, during civil unrest. So in the future, we're looking to just strengthen those relationships and improve our policing model. For instance, I'll throw out something that many people don't know. So we're dealing with a lot of homelessness, mental health issues with some of our populace, and people are coming from all over the nation. They're coming to Boston because they don't have the resources in their states or even in the rest of this Commonwealth. Everyone's coming here. Opioid addiction, dependencies, mental health, homelessness. We're finding as a police department that we have to deal with this. But we're finding as a police department as well, we need to educate ourselves about who is able to come in and assist us and work in partnership. So just by this example that I'm setting forth now, all of those aforementioned, we have depended on agencies such as the Pine Street Inn. We've depended on the judicial system, Boston Medical Center, right? How about Somerville Police, Brookline Police? Let me tell you how this is all factoring in.
This is
Training-
exciting. This is
Training
new.
and education. So I have police officers now that are trained as police assisted addiction recovery coaches. That's
Wow.
unheard of before, right? I have police officers that are trained now as critical incident training, as well as crisis intervention and training. So what I'm looking to do is to make sure all of our officers are trained beyond what people deem as the normal. Oh, how to make an arrest, con law, criminal law. No, we are training our officers how to have more empathy, sympathy, care, and respect, fair and impartial policing, de-escalation, procedural justice. But when we're talking about teaching, it is bringing people in the village and to share their lived experiences, to broaden our horizons, and as well, recognizing who else in the village can share their methodology and their training to help improve you as a police department. As well, as very important to show that you're accepting of anyone in any part of our village. If they want to come aboard the first responder family, you're more than welcome. So implementing change means you have to address issues of civil unrest and what's causing civil unrest, right? You have to
Right.
address the issues of police reform and why it's needed. And that, in that discussion, you have to let people know if you want change, be the change. And unlike the days of yore,
Right.
when it was our way or the highway again, when we told people what to do, we didn't listen to you, and we don't want your kind on our police department. Those days are gone. So the Boston Police will welcome and should look like any neighborhood that we serve. And if you want to come aboard the family as sworn in civilian, not only in BPD, emergency medical services, as well as the Boston Fire Department, we're going to welcome you aboard, because effective leadership and change and developing change means that you're going to need people to help you do that.
So
And-
that would kind of change the dynamic somewhat of the hiring process with the cadets, of some of the things that
Absolutely.
they're gonna have.
And
Yeah,
we're doing all of that. You can talk about diversity and inclusion all day. You have to put your money where your mouth is. We have a diversity recruiting officer, an exam administrator to make sure our exams are fair to everyone. We have the input from 4 police unions. We have groups that we have in BPD to help us implement change and be our best ambassadors to the community as pertains to diversity and recruiting. And again, you have to put your money where your mouth is. You have to show that everybody's welcome. We need you. And people are comfortable and appreciative when they're a part of that change. Excuse me, strike comfortable. They're comfortable in the fact of knowing that once they're a part of
Right.
that implementation of change, they kind of have bragging rights. They have a lot of pride. It's nothing like having people come in from the community, help you work on something that's very successful. They're your best ambassadors for change, because they're going to tell others, like, come on, if you work together.
now something we
gotta be
sat
rewarding.
down, yeah, something we sat down and we talked about almost 4 years ago at Curry College. We sat down and we talked about authentic leadership, what it really meant. It seems to be coming round circle.
Oh my goodness, you're a visionary.
No, it was both of us. It's just like when,
I like bragging about you. You're brilliant.
well,
And I told you why. It's your method of teaching. All right.
well,
You come
Thank-
across well. and people can, they can resonate with what you're saying and how you
Well,
teach.
that was gonna be my I only got 5 more minutes, so this is gonna be my last question to you. And it's kind of, I'm asking you, here again, always the teacher, always the professor. What as you probably are aware, I'm working on a degree we've been really trying to get a degree program in leadership off the ground in Curry. And we've got Discovering the Leader in You, which you took. Right now I'm doing Leading Change. We're gonna do strategic leadership and all of that. What are some of the things that you would like to see? Because as you know, I teach a lot of police officers as well, as students going for a leadership degree. What would you like to see in a degree program along the lines of what we just talked about with community policing? Like, what type of courses would you like to see?
So we're constantly mentoring and developing our police officers. And when I say we, I mean my law enforcement family. You don't have to have stars and stripes to do that. Some of our groups like MAMLEO, JAGO, Latino Law Enforcement Organization of Boston, which has a pre-police academy, developing those who wish to become police officers. Emerald Society, Italian American Police Officers, Cabo Verde Police Association, Benevolent Asian Jade Society. See all those names that I just mentioned?
Yeah, write them
Right.
down.
So these are the folks that you use to help develop the department that you know and love, to serve the community that you know and love, to also study what needs to be done in 21st century policing and how we police, right? And how to strengthen that foundation of policing, which would be inclusive of strengthening our foundations in the community. That model of change that I'm talking about, all those groups I just mentioned, years ago, certain groups would have to sue just to be a member of the Boston Police Department because of the color of their skin, where they came from. Again, you have to show the young officers that come on the job, we're past those days, but we still have work to do. And the importance of a continued education, whether it's through our institutions of higher learning or to continue educating yourself by listening to mentors and others who have traveled a much bumpier road than you have had to traverse. They smoothed that road along the way. So learn from lived experiences and those that have traveled a much bumpier road than you've had to travel. And I listen to those folks myself. And I marvel at that they didn't become so jaded and cynical that they're not able to impart their knowledge. So the effective
put all of this. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The effective change that I see in this department going forward is to definitely study your surrounding. What's happening in the nation? Why are people so pissed off at the police? Study it, right? Remember when I said empathy, sympathy, care, and respect? Put yourself in that person's shoes.
That was in our little circle thing, remember?
Yep.
We put it, yeah.
Yeah. Put yourself in that person's shoes and you'll help you understand where they're coming from. And then when you have those conversations, you're going to find that you have more in common than not. I'm going to bring up something that, wow, really caused the hue and cry for police reform, the murder of Mr. Floyd, right?
I was going to bring that up, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to. Yeah.
So people watched in 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the people that were supposed to serve and protect you and work in partnership with you, they went from here
all the way down.
Being murderers, to where a man's crying for his mother in his last breath. The time
It's painful to even talk about it. Yeah.
8 minutes and 46 seconds. If you take 4 minutes and 23 seconds and afford that time to the people that have questions, or even some that are pissed at you, have that conversation. 423 for them, 423 for you. that's the beginning of a dialogue that ends division and hopefully brings us together where we can work in partnership for better understanding of each other to create a better nation. I've had
Wow.
that discussion with youth, seniors. People just don't understand. And then when they finally get a chance to get to listen to your 4 minutes and 23 seconds, when you're saying we're not all like that, we're individuals too. We don't blame you for every bad driver, motor vehicle homicide. We're like, well, you're just like him, right? A bad politician, well, you're just like him if you're a city councilor, right?
Stereotyping,
And
yeah.
the youth, yeah, stereotyping. So you have to have the ability to look at what's going on around you, right?
I love it. And I'm
To
gonna,
have those discussions and you will go forward. It's tough too, having those discussions because both sides will be passionate, but you'll find out you have more in common than not often. And if not, agree to disagree.
okay, and my gosh, you've given me more time than I should have had. But what I will, speaking of change, just like to wrap up with this, number one, please send my sincerest congratulations to Mayor Walsh for his appointment to Washington.
So,
Yeah, please do that. And of course, that presents change for you as well, right now. And, you know, and we keep, I'm not gonna put you on the spot. Don't worry about it.
oh, you can put me on the spot. I'll give you 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me where you're going. Go ahead.
So I am deeply honored. And you know, Professor, I don't BS. I tell it like it is.
I know you do. That's why I'm asking.
As soon as the mayor was announced as a nominee for the Secretary of Labor to our great United States under President-elect Biden, quite frankly, I started getting calls, emails, like, hey, you should run for mayor. And I says, we still have a mayor. And so that was on a Thursday. And by Friday, all of a sudden I'm in the Globe as the president.
I know. You never
The
gave an
president-elect
answer.
and my mayor, the nominee, they're on TV making an announcement. And so by Saturday, I'm on the front page of the Herald. And by Sunday, I'm on Dan Ray says, hey, someone close to Willie says he's 90% sure, which caused many phone calls to my mother, my sister, my girlfriend. And I'm like, hey, I wouldn't jump in the man's seat. It's still warm. But here's the thing. Remember we talked about change and working in partnership?
Yeah.
It came down to, in my discussion with people, they love how they said that I have the ability to talk to people, bridge the gap, and I tell it like it is. And they thought I'd be a great mayor. I never once put my name into a newspaper or anything. I just talked to people. And so that's how this all came about. And out of respect for people, and their thoughtful consideration of me being a mayoral candidate, I'm going to give it deep consideration. But it also shows something else that people don't pick up. Remember when I talked about the village concept, working together, making our city the best that they can be. Even people that have traversed roads that were much bumpier, method to my madness. The village raised me when I had nothing. They raised me. And all I did was pay it forward, work in partnership. There's some tough times, there's some great times, but the people that raised me, right?
Are the people that are gonna decide where you should go.
But whether I decide that or not, what it's showing is the importance of working together and the importance of leadership. And when leadership recognizes who got you there. So when I say it's an honor to even be considered, I'm thinking about seniors that taught me the way, good guys and bad guys that taught me the way, people that had my back. And what I've always said to you in the past, sometimes people have a vision for you before you can even see it. And that's when I was a young man and I wanted to be a police officer, and I was. And then they said, one day you're going to be a chief or a big boss. And I'm like, no, not me. And here I am.
Do you remember what I wrote in your book?
Yes,
a year before my autograph book to you. And I wrote that there was no inkling that that was ever going to happen anytime soon. It's called vision. You've got that vision. So whatever you decide, wherever you go, in my mind, you're a leader and
Thank
you're a
you.
servant leader.
And I thank everybody that helped get me to where I am today. When they said, "Oh, you'd make a great mayor," and I'm like, and again, it's just overwhelming respect that I have for folks. I'm like, no, that's us. Imagine the young kid out there right now that's kind of doubting himself, or young male or female. You can be so important to them. Every time you say you can do whatever you want in this life, if you apply yourself, we have many, many examples of that success. You had a mayor that had an addiction to alcohol. He had cancer. At one point, he was shot. You have many, many leaders in our great city that went through many, many hardships, and they are here because of the village and the willingness for the villagers to change their lives for the better. So again, part of leadership is realizing who got you here. And if you want to find out why leadership is so important, look at the successes that it's created throughout history and in our city now. So this does work. Effective leadership, effective change works. It saves lives and creates a better future. So I thank everyone that got me here. And it just shows what can happen when you train a good old country yokel like me from Hillsborough, Maryland. I think people have done well by me, and I hope to do well by them, no matter what capacity that I serve.
Well, wherever you go, I will follow you and I will work with you and I will help
Thank you.
And that's my promise to you. And you have probably 10,000 meetings to go to. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. Yeah, I know. I like that watch.
Thank you.
Beautiful. But please, you know that we will always be together 24/7 in thought and prayer. To you and your village, your community, keep yourself safe and well. And God bless you in everything that you do.
Thank you, sir. You as well. Have a safe, prosperous, and healthy new year. Say hi to Eric, your lovely wife. God
Thank you.
bless.
And Eric just got his 2-year pin, so I
All
told
right,
Nikki.
here we go.
There we go. All right, we will talk soon. We'll keep in touch.
All right, sir. Great seeing you again.
Nice seeing you. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye.